And welcome to the Sage 50 Cloud Pastel Accounting Topic webinar. My name is Joanne Barnard. I am a product specialist for Sage 50 Cloud with 12 years of experience, and I will be the panelist and the host for this session. So guys, basically today what we're going to be speaking about is the top 5 status errors. So a few weeks ago, we spoke about the top 5 runtime errors, or the most common runtime errors that we get on our support desk. And today we're going to be speaking about the status errors. For those of you that would like to know if this is recorded, guys, all of my sessions are recorded. Those videos are those recordings are in the process of becoming YouTube videos. And I then try to upload those videos to our YouTube channel so that if for whatever reason you don't receive your email, or I somehow miss your email asking me for the recording, you can go onto YouTube, you can go onto our global channel, you can go into the 50 Cloud Pastel accounting section, and you can find those recordings. And it does specify that it is a recording of a live event, which is why they're not quite as polished as the other videos, because this is a live event. Any mistakes I make, stay in the video. So guys, that being said, what are the top status errors? Now, the top status errors normally are to do with pervasive. So you've got your status 161, your status 116, your status 94 or pervasive error 94. It is the same thing. It's just the error that comes up is a little bit different. Normally it's status 94, your status 2, and then your status 46, which is actually very similar. And those are the ones that come up the most on the support desk. Now, 3 of those are specifically to do with pervasive, but it's different aspects of pervasive. So for example, your status 161 is actually to do with your pervasive licensing. And that would be here. So the pervasive license administrator. And this normally occurs when you have either the wrong pervasive installed or you have Pastel installed on too many machines. So what we find quite common is that you will have a full user, for example, and in that full user, you will have it installed on a server and then 4 workstations. Now, as long as no one ever opens Pastel and pervasive is not activated on the server, the other 4 workstations should work okay. They should be fine without that error. But if pervasive is activated on the server, or if someone opens Pastel on the server, guys, that's using a license, whether you use Pastel on that server or not. Someone is going to get a status 161, which is you have exceeded your pervasive licenses. Now, that does occur, and it's not as common as one would think. Normally, people would go, hey, we've got this error, and, you know, we're not in that scenario. Oh, sorry, guys. Thank you so much. Apparently, I did not change my screen. Thank you so much to the person who told me that. I am so sorry. I forgot to change the screens that I'm showing. Please let me know if you can now see my screen. So guys, basically all that I had open while talking was the license administrator. That was it. Just so you know, much like the runtime errors, I can't really show the errors. It's not something that we can create on demand. So it's very difficult for me to be like, hey, this is the error that you're going to get. Now I'm going to show you how to solve it. Because they're not errors that we can just create. So don't worry, all that I had open was the license administrator, as you see, because we're talking about 161. But guys, honestly, you would think that would be the most common reason, and we often are going, oh, hey, you need an extra license or whatever. That actually is not the case. It is in very rare circumstances that that is the case. Normally what occurs is that there are a number of things that can go wrong. 9 out of 10 times on one of the machines. And it might not be the machine getting the error. Someone has the wrong pervasive installed. So what you need to see is on a machine that is actually has Pastel open, you first need to go to Help and About. In Help and About, what's going to happen is it is going to tell you the version of Pervasive you are licensed to use, not the version that's installed, but what, based on your serial number, you are actually licensed to use, as well as the number of users. So it will, for example, tell you that, hey, you have Pervasive Workgroup 13. That's what you're meant to be using. And over here somewhere, it should tell me the number of users I'm allowed. So I've got a multi-user license of only 1, guys. So I am basically a single user, but you might have 5 here or 10 or whatever. Those are your number of users. In order to ensure on every machine that the correct Pervasive is installed, you need to go to your control panel and you need to actually check, because as I said, the machine that's getting the status 161 may not actually be the machine that has the problem. It could be someone who's logged in and they've now caused a problem. So you're going to come in here, you're going to go to Program and Features on every machine that you use Pastel on, including the server, even if you don't use it on the server. And guys, what you're going to look for is you're going to look for your Pervasive. I think that I've actually got 10 installed. I could be wrong. I might have my 13 installed. But then it should be under Action. So guys, Pervasive 13 does not install under P, it actually installs under A for Action. And this is obviously based on my dates, which is going to annoy me. There we go. So here, if you're meant to be using 13, you're looking for Action, but anything else will actually be under Pervasive. So what you want to do is you actually want to ensure that what Pastel told you should be running is what you're running. In this case, I'm absolutely running the correct version, so that's not my problem. But what you may find is that someone will actually have version 10 installed or an older version. I do see someone's hand up. Guys, please use the question icon right-hand side of the screen. You need to type your question through to me. I will take a look. If, however, it's about the sound, please press F5. Please press Control F5. If that doesn't work, please exit and re-enter. But you need to use the question icon. Thanks. So guys, yeah, that's like your first step, is obviously checking those types of things. If everyone has the correct version installed, it may be that on the server, and licenses need to be applied from the server. So the machine that you register as the Pastel server, you have to check the Pervasive License Administrator, because you need to make sure that that is correct, that that information is showing correctly. In my case, it is showing me that I do have a permanent license, so I'm fine. But what if I were a multi-user and it only shows me 1 license? That is again where my problem is. And guys, the license administrator may be wrong because of a number of reasons, but one of those could be within your control panel again. You can either go to search or you can find it another way. We're looking for the UAC, but if we're in Programs and Features, you need to go back to All Control Items. So do not freak out if it doesn't come up, and you might have to click in there a bit, but you're looking for something called User Account Control Settings. Now you can either do this by typing in UAC or go back to our control panel. Guys, depending on if you're on category view, large view, small view, you're going to go user accounts again, and change user account control settings. So as I said, that's in category view. If we're in large or small icons, you should just have to select user accounts once, and then you're going to go change user account control settings. Guys, I cannot tell you the number of times that I have logged in to a user's machine where they've told me I've checked everything and the UAC is on. It has to be off, period. Now, guys, yes, certain Windows updates can turn this on. So although you may be going, but I know that I always turn it off, if you do a Windows update, it may re-enable this. So please double check this. Don't go, oh, I know I've turned that off before, so this is not an issue. Please check this. Make sure that it is off. Make sure that it's on Never Notify, and okay, it does not need to be switched on. Some people do go, but extra security. Guys, honestly, while the UAC was a interesting thought that Windows had, they didn't think it through. So they thought it through for actual when you purposefully click on things, but they didn't think about background processes. And when you register your pervasive, especially if it's workgroup, that is done in the background. And in that case, the option for you to say, yes, please allow this to be registered or no, does not happen. And what the UAC does is, or the user account control does, is it just denies access. It goes, no, you may not have access, because the whole point of the user account control was to stop people from doing things, or to get a message to go, hey, this is happening on your computer. Is this something you yourself have chosen? The problem with the UAC is it only happens when you as a user select to install a program or to make a specific change, but background processes, it just denies. Now, yes, it can be helpful if a hacker is trying to do something to your computer, but it's not helpful when you have a program like Pastel, which is trying to apply licenses, or Sage Intelligence that is trying to apply macros, and the user account control is just denying that, and now your reports aren't running, or you're getting a status 161 or even a 116 or even an error code 20. Guys, it's incredibly frustrating, and quite frankly, if you have a decent IT department, your firewall should be set up so that hackers actually can't get in there. Your antivirus and your firewall are the things that make you safe. The UAC is really not robust. Most hackers can get through it, and it should not be something that you're counting on. So I just wanted to address that, because I do get that security is a very big thing. We don't want people, unauthorized people, accessing our networks and our programs and our PCs. But guys, that's what you have Windows firewalls for. That is what you have antiviruses for. That is what you have domains with Active Directory set up for. And your IT department should have that security set up while allowing the programs that you need to run. Which brings us to our next step, and that is making sure that your firewall and your antivirus are set up correctly. Now, guys, I don't have access to my antivirus. I am on Sage's domain, and my IT department manage that. So I can't go into Active Directory and show you how that works. One, I'm not skilled enough to do that, and I'm not about to teach people how Active Directory works because I'm not an IT engineer. And two, I don't have access to our antivirus, and not all antiviruses are the same, which is why you need a qualified IT engineer. If you don't know how to add the exceptions, they need to know how to do that in your antivirus software. But you can always check your firewall unless your antivirus is controlling it. So normally I prefer working in large icons. I just find it easier to find what I'm looking for. But what we're looking for is we're looking for our Windows firewall, which is here. And basically, guys, what you're going to do is you're going to go into your Windows firewall and you're going to go into your advanced settings. And basically, you need to make sure that your inbound and your outbound rules allow pervasive in. So you need to have one for the pervasive database and one for the pervasive ports. Guys, you can see that I've added these a few times. You do not need to add them multiple times. Once is fine. But basically, you need to make sure that you have added the actual database location as a exception on both inbound and outbound rules. So I'm not going to actually save it because I've done it so many times. So guys, basically you'll select outbound rules, for example, new rule, You're then going to go to either program or port, in this case program, next, and you're going to browse. Now again, if you're running 9 or 10, you are going to browse for Pervasive. This should be in, I think it's in my 86. And guys, here you're going to look for Pervasive. Now the reason that you're looking in x86 is 9 and 10 were both 32-bit applications. So it should be under Pervasive Software, which I still do have that option available, but as you'll see, it's blank because I no longer have version 10 available. In my case, version 13, you do have the option of installing a 64-bit version of that, which would be under program files. And then guys, it should be under Actian unless I install the 32-bit, which is possible. I was sure that I had installed 64, but you do have that option. Okay, guys, I seem to have lost where I installed my Pervasive, which is a little bit worrying. I do apologize. I just want to quickly see if I can find that. It's not in my common files. Sorry guys, I did have to uninstall and reinstall some of my stuff yesterday, so I don't know if somehow my file is hidden. But basically, you would go in, you would look for Pervasive or Actian. You would go in and you would select your wbtrieve database manager. And you will add that as an exception. For some reason, I'm not seeing mine, and I am like 100% sure that it should be here, which is why it's worrying me a little bit. Okay, sorry guys, Actian apparently goes to program data. I was pretty sure it went to one of those, but program data, Actian PSQL, and basically I'm looking for my database. Yeah, I'm right, it's not meant to be in program data. Guys, I'll have to find my Actian. I'm not sure if I broke something when uninstalling and reinstalling it, but it doesn't want to find it for me. But basically from here, you will select your database manager. And you do that in both your inbound and your outbound rules. So guys, if you need to see a video on this, I do have a video where this works. Again, my apologies. I don't know what's happened, and I'm a little bit worried that my Pastel is not going to really work when I try to open a company. And at the end, if that does happen, stick around and I'll try to fix it. But then you also need to add your pervasive ports. So basically your ports are 1583 and 3351. And guys, it is with a comma. So it is specific ports. You're not doing a range. A range would be when you do like 1583-3351, but that can be quite dangerous unless, you know, your IT do it for a specific reason. Normally you will just open very specific ports. In this case, the 2 pervasive ports. And again, you just do that by going to inbound and outbound new rule, selecting your ports, going next, entering the specific ports. So 1583 and 3351, going next and making sure you allow the connection. So guys, you'll see on outbound rules, by default, it always goes block this connection. We don't want it. You do want to allow the connection, and you want to do it on every single machine, the server as well as all the workstations, because you want to make sure that communication is happening both ways. It doesn't help if the server can send information to your workstations, but they can't send information back to the server. So you need to allow the connection, and then you need to choose whether it's on your domain, private, and public. So a lot of the time people don't select public because they're not comfortable with that. But guys, again, if you're worried about what you're selecting here, please speak to your IT so they can tell you of the dangers. Say next, and you're going to give it a name. In my case, I called it pervasive ports. So guys, you need to make sure the firewall, so you've got those exceptions on your firewall as well as on your antivirus. Some antiviruses do control the firewall, and in that case, adding them to your antivirus should protect them on your firewall. Guys, another thing that I've noticed that does seem to help is that when you add, especially if we're talking about adding the program to the firewall. So what some people will do is they will add the Pastel program. So they'll navigate to Pastel, and they will add the Pastel program. So we'll go into 19, for example, and they'll just add, where is it? Pastel exe as an exception. Guys, please add actually the whole Pastel folder. Like, you don't need to just add the exe, because all of these files actually kind of help the system to run. So please rather just add the whole folder as an exception. In that way, you know that, it's not being blocked. So you can do that. You shouldn't have to, but if you're getting errors, you can do that. This shouldn't cause an issue in Pervasive. This might cause like a runtime error 5 or something, and you can add the whole folder as an exception. So guys, that is if we're talking about status 161. Honestly, adding that stuff should work. Making sure the UAC is off, making sure that your Pervasive is added as exceptions in your antivirus and firewall. But then there are a couple of other things. So guys, Pastel and, well, it's more Pastel than Pervasive, but we have seen that if this is not selected, it can cause issues. Uses something called .NET Framework. And if you're using Windows 10 or one of the latest server softwares, all of the .NET frameworks are not normally selected, or all of the options are not selected by default. So what you need to do is you need to go and search and go turn Windows features on or off. And what you're looking for is you're looking for anything that says .NET Framework, even if it is .NET Framework 3.5, which includes Net 2 and Net 3, because there are certain functions that you may need for your Pastel to run. But you need to make sure that if it says .NET, whether it is 3.5 including 2 and 3 or 4.8, that all of the options are selected, guys. If for whatever reason your .NET just has a little square, that is not fully selected. So you need to fully select all of the options and then select OK. Here you will see TCP port sharing is part of .NET because Windows also uses .NET, and Pervasive uses TCP to communicate. If that is not switched on, it's not going to communicate. You're going to get communication issues like status 94, like 161, like 116. Normally it's status 94, error code 20. But it can cause other issues. So guys, we strongly advise that you actually do watch the video, I think that's how to prevent pervasive errors or troubleshooting common pervasive errors. I will take you to that video on YouTube. But guys, it runs through all of these things that you should enable once you've installed Pervasive and Pastel before you even register, to make sure that everything is correct, that everything is set up correctly, that you don't have any issues. So you need to make sure that your .NET is also fully functional. Another thing that you may need to check, and this isn't specific to 161 or 94, but it is a check that can really help, is firstly, guys, one, please make sure, especially with Pastel and with any issues, that if you're running in a multi-user environment that you're not using Windows single user, that isn't for network at all. It's just not, or home. It's not meant for a network. Going it used to work doesn't matter. A lot of the time people will say stuff like that, like, yeah, but it was working, so you must get it to work. No, it's not compatible. Not trying to be an arsehole, not trying to be mean. But guys, it's not compatible. It's right there in our system requirements. You can't expect to run a multi-user if you have single language or home on one of your operating systems. It's not for networking, period. So even though you maybe got it to work, that doesn't mean that you're not going to have issues and you're not going to have problems. Pervasive is a live data set. You do not want to be running Pervasive in a network environment using operating systems that are not for networked environments. You're actually asking for corruption and to have issues. So guys, in the event that that happens, we are going to tell you, so you're running Windows single user, it's not for network, it's not for networking, it's not to be used in a multi-user environment. Or you're running home, it's not for a multi-user environment. And guys, unfortunately, no, saying it used to work is not a valid reason. It's not for that. Windows state it's not for that. We state it's not for that. We have system requirements for a reason. So I just wanted to cover that because it does happen a lot, and I do get the frustration. I do get that it's like, okay, well, what if I can't afford anything but home? Well, then don't expect your network to run properly and expect to have issues. And we're talking about live data sets. This is your accounting. These are your financials. Then rather maybe look at different options. So I do get that. What do you want me to do? Then guys, maybe look at something like Sage Business Cloud Accounting, or a package that is actually cloud native that you can run on the internet, and your operating system doesn't actually matter if you need multi-user. That might be a better option for you. Just saying. So I do get that obviously not everyone has the money for Windows Professional, but then you may need to look at a cloud native product where you can have multi-user like Sage Business Cloud Accounting, and you can then run it on the internet where your operating system actually is not going to affect that because it's run within the internet or within the cloud, not over a network. Getting back to, however, running on an operating system, we're saying our operating system is correct, our Windows is correct for a multi-user, because guys, status 161 and 116 only happen in a multi-user in a networked environment. There are a couple of other things we can check. The thing that we're going to check normally causes an error code 20, but again, it's something that I advise you check. And what you're going to do is you need to gain access to region. So again, if we're looking at category, guys, you're going to go to clock and region and then region. If, however, we're looking at large or small, you're just going to click on region. Make sure that your format is correct. So those of you who have attended many sessions that me and Nancy have run, you'll know that at times a solution is to make sure that your regional settings are correct. You know, make sure that you are using the correct date format, that you are using commas and full stops in the correct place. So for example, Pastel is actually a South African product. So it was created with the region being set up for South Africa, and in South Africa we use a full stop as our decimal place. We don't use a comma. So the decimal symbol needs to be a full stop. And then guys, this one I want to explain it because a lot of the time I don't think people understand why the digit grouping symbol needs to be a comma. So I've seen it be a semicolon, I've seen it be a colon, and people are like, yeah, but why can't it be that? I've also seen where SARS themselves for e-filing have said that it actually needs to be a slash. I can't remember where I saw that, but I know that I did. And when I spoke to the user, they were like, oh, but I got told it has to be that for my e-filing or for something that they were importing, I think from payroll. And I fully understood that, but I had to explain to them that that was why their import for Pastel wasn't working. And guys, it's not so much Pastel that's the problem. In this instance, the digit grouping symbol needs to be a comma for Excel. Because what happens is when you export your information from Pastel, if it's not a comma, what it does is it puts everything in column A. And even at times, if you create the layout from Excel and you save it, it puts everything in column A, and then you try to import it into Pastel and you get this long list of errors. And guys, that's actually why it needs to be a comma. For some reason, Excel does not like colons, semicolons, or that funny straight slash. Yeah, I fully understand if you do need to do something for SARS, and that's what they've told you to do, but then please bear in mind that your export and import layouts for Pastel may not work because they've told you to please put this as a digit grouping symbol. Then just remember, oh yeah, I can't export and import batches in Pastel because it's not going to work. So it should be a comma for Pastel, but I do understand that some people and other programs change this. I see that I've got a question. Oh, that's right. Thank you so much for my BP who just reminded me it was for the TERS relief CSV files. And they used a funny character, guys. So that's why I saw it. But I just wanted to raise that because I do want you to understand that we understand other programs do tell you to do that. But for Pastel, it's not Pastel or Sage that actually went, hey, please change this. It was actually SARS themselves who decided to use that. But then it causes a problem with Excel, which is what Pastel uses for imports and exports. So it was for TERS. And if you are going to be using TERS, because I think it's still valid, guys, please just remember that if you're also going to use Pastel imports and exports, you may need to come and keep changing your region. And you need to do that for number and currency. So they both do work, but that's how they're meant to be set up for Pastel. And then guys, date, a lot of people will be like, hey, why do I need to change the short date? And guys, the short date normally creates a problem when you're importing your bank statements in Bank Manager. So if it's not set to day, month, year, and normally I use 4 years, so why, because that's what the layout most banks use, then you get that invalid layout in Bank Manager. So set that up. I know that this isn't specifically for the status errors, this is just errors in general. This can avoid a lot of errors like runtime error 9, the Bank Manager error. So it's a number of errors. It's important to set this up. But then guys, on region, go to administrative and click on change system locale. And this also needs to be set to English South Africa. And a lot of the time when people are getting really weird, like errors that aren't clearing 116, 161, especially error code 20, it's because this beta Unicode is selected and that needs to be deselected. So we picked this up specifically on Windows 10. It was after a Windows update, and I don't know if it keeps being selected. But guys, sometimes when a specific error will not change, you know, you do need to just untick that option. So that's specifically for certain status errors, and especially error code 20, which I know isn't a status error, but it's a very common pervasive error that needs to not be selected. Then guys, I had a question, I just want to go there, about the payroll. Date like you showed us, also important for payroll. Yes, it is. Okay, so guys, obviously I'm still learning payroll at the moment. So I've done my course in Sage Business Cloud Accounting. For those of you who are going to start attending those topic webinars, I know some of you have attended the Sage 50 Cloud versus Sage Business Cloud Accounting, and I'm currently busy with payroll. So I'm sure that I would have seen that it's important eventually, but I'm not quite there yet. But yes, I imagine that it's also really important for payroll. A lot of the region and language is important for a lot of our programs, especially our desktop programs. because of the imports and exports. But guys, even our cloud native products like Sage Business Cloud Accounting and Sage Business Cloud Payroll, although they're on the internet and they shouldn't necessarily need to use the region and language in Windows, if you are still going to use CSV files, your CSV files, your Excel still pulls from the region and language, which is why it's still really important to make sure that your Windows region language is compatible with those layouts, or else you're going to feel very frustrated when you've spent hours setting up an Excel file and it doesn't import. And it's because of your region and language, and often you have to redo those layouts after fixing the region and layout, or the region. So guys, please make sure, like, these are things that actually should be done before you even register. These are common things that I feel every person should know, which is why I run these sessions. And this is how your Windows should be set up immediately before even registering. So guys, as I said, for these, make sure that is deselected. You do not want that to be selected. So that is really important. Your .NET being enabled, your UAC being off, and then the beta not being selected, as well as making sure, and those of you, if you don't know how to make sure what Windows you're running, you know, you went to a incredible connection, or you went to, you know, a computer store and you told them, look, I need a couple of laptops, whatever, and you trusted the salespeople because they are more technologically advanced than what you are, and you're like, I don't know what Windows this is running, Joe. You said that I need to make sure I'm running the correct Windows. Guys, you can open your File Explorer, either right-click on this PC. I think that it is this PC, yeah. So it's not Windows, it's just on this PC. Go to Properties. And what it's going to do is it's going to tell you the actual name of your PC, which is important, what your PC is running, so the amount of RAM, your processor. Yes, I have a really good laptop. And then, guys, it's also going to tell you what Windows you're running. So like I said, if you are a multi-user, and we were specifically talking about status 161 and status 116, which only really occurs in a multi-user environment, as well as actually status 94, guys, you need to make sure that you are running Windows Pro or Windows Enterprise. You cannot be running Windows Home or Windows Single Language. They are not for network. So then you would need to upgrade, and you would need to then pay that amount. And if you can't afford that, then guys, rather look at a cloud native solution where the operating system you're running is not important. It is in our minimum specs that you cannot be running home, or a home-like package. It will not work. So guys, that is where you can check that if you did not know, and you can check what you're running. Then guys, another thing that you can do, it shouldn't actually change the statuses. I'm going to go through the last couple of things that are important for status shortly, but another thing you can check is Windows Update. So sometimes weird errors in Pastel can happen because you have pending updates, and especially if it's to do with .NET. So you may go check and you're like, but .NET is fully enabled, Joe. It's completely enabled. And I've done everything. I've checked my licenses. I've checked my version of Pervasive. I've gone and checked, especially for 116. Guys, you need to, for example, go in. So we're going to look for our Action. And guys, I'm doing this specifically, where is my little, I'm doing this specifically to show you. So you're going to go in here, and for 116, you need to make sure that your gateway is working. So what you normally do is on the server, you point the server to itself. So you see mine is unassigned. What you'll do is you'll go change, and guys, basically you're going to point the server to itself. So you'll enter the computer name or the IP address, and you're going to say okay, and it's going to assign us. And on the workstations, you're also going to point them to the server. Now again, guys, if you don't know how to get the server name, you are going to And if you don't know how to get to File Explorer, you hold your Windows key and E, that opens File Explorer. You're going to click on this PC, right click and go to Properties. And this is on the server itself, and it will give you the server name. Remember with Pastel, when you map to computer name, not IP address. And a large portion of that is because we use dynamic IPs, not static IPs. So a lot of the time, depending on how the computers are turned on, the IP addresses can change, which means that you then are mapped to a completely different computer. Pervasive just doesn't like it, guys. It does not work with dynamic IPs. It does not work with IPs, period. So you need to know the computer name. And although the gateway can work with an IP, I strongly advise that you just put the computer name in there. So you need to know what computer you're working with, and you can set the gateway. So that's for 116. Guys, so again, if you've checked .NET and you've checked UAC and you've checked the version of Pervasive and everything is correct, you've checked the license administrator and the licenses on all the machines are showing correctly as the server, the only thing you can do in that instance is uninstall and reinstall Pervasive and make sure that it works. If that doesn't work, guys, you probably need to get hold of us. We'll log in and we will try to see if there's something funny with the machine. Make sure that you are actually logged in as an administrator and you're not a power user, for example. You need to be part of the admin group. It could be if you're on a domain that something in the Active Directory just is not allowing those licenses to apply, but then you'll normally get errors. Everything's not going to be correct. So for example, you'll go into the license administrator and you'll just see a single user license. And when you try to register, it's just never going to put the multi-user license there. In that case, it could be that you're on a domain. So guys, you saw that when I went to go and check my Windows updates, I think it was, and I'm just trying to, my system, I must have closed it. So guys, I'm just going to do this again, check for updates. Again, guys, I'm in a domain. So if you look on my screen, it'll tell you that some of my settings are managed by my organization. So a lot of my setup is managed by my IT. I actually can't check for updates. My IT does that and pushes them down to me because I'm in a domain. You might be in a similar situation, in which case you can always get hold of your IT and go, guys, are there Windows updates? But then, guys, it should tell you that you're up to date. If it tells you that there are updates pending, especially if you see it's a .NET update, please run it. For some reason, when Windows updates stuff and it's .NET, it seems like their .NET freezes and kind of puts it into a read-only type category, and then Pastel can have issues. I've noticed that a lot, especially with Windows 10. Every time there's an update and it says .NET, there's spikes, guys. There's spikes in error code 20, there's spikes in 161, and then we know that, oh, there's been a Windows update and it's .NET. And we have to tell people, please run the Windows updates. Please make sure that they're done. Please go and double check UAC and stuff. It could have re-enabled those things. And you have to go through all of those checks. So make sure your Windows is up to date. Make sure all of your .NET is selected. Make sure the UAC is off. And then, guys, again, make sure that your license administrator is showing correctly and the same on all machines. So that is another area where 116 or even 161 happens, where the server shows perfectly and we'll get told, but everything's fine. And eventually we go through every single workstation. So we log in, we go through, and we find one machine which shows only a one-user license. And all that you have to do is re-register this workstation and it shows correctly. So guys, make sure that all of the license administrators are showing, you know, your one user and your user increase, or your 5 users, however the licenses are meant to be, and that they are correct. If all of that is correct, then basically uninstall, reinstall. And once you've done that, if it's still not working, then yeah, please give us a ring, let us know, because chances are we do need to log in and have a look. But guys, those should be very few cases then. It's not often that we need to log in. The videos that we show you how to correct these errors do work in 99% of cases, as well as the KB articles. That's why we wrote them. In 99% of cases, they work. Now guys, I specifically kept referencing 161 and 116 because they're very similar. But in the case of 116, you can also run the network or the PSA, so the Pervasive System Analyzer. And guys, basically with the Pervasive System Analyzer, what you want to check is you want to check the network. And the reason you want to do that, and you want to check it on the workstation that has the issue as well as on the server. So on the server, you're going to browse for the workstation machine. You're not going to browse for the server. You need to know either the IP address or the server name of the workstation, and you're going to select that. If you go into network, hopefully all of your PCs are there, and on the server, you're going to select the workstation and you're going to check the network. On the workstation, you're going to select the server. And what you want to see is you want to see that the communication is happening both ways. Normally, if you get a WinSock error, that means that there is a problem with the network. Now, if you Google those, it will tell you server is not allowing the connection from the workstation, or the workstation is not allowing the connection from the server. Guys, 9 out of 10 times that normally means that either your antivirus or your firewall is blocking that connection. And normally if you open the ports and the program, like I tried to show you earlier, again, apologies about the program. I don't know where my folders disappeared to, and I will fix it. But basically, guys, you need to allow those. Now, it could be that it's the antivirus that's blocking it. And yes, you can switch off your antivirus, you can switch off your firewall, you can see if it then works. But guys, obviously you don't want to leave those things switched off. As I said, we do live in an era which is digital, and unfortunately, as much as we wish that people were honest and kind and worked hard for their money, that they earned it, we have criminals who think that they deserve more. And in the digital era, we have hackers. So please don't leave those things off. That's not a solution. While we may say, look, can you turn this off because we just want to see if it works, for, you know, half an hour or whatever, you're probably not going to get attacked. But guys, please don't leave that stuff off. You need those things for digital and internet protection. So you need to make sure that those things are set up correctly. The pervasive database and ports are added to your firewall as well as your antivirus. So normally that's where the WinSock error will come in, and that actually means there's a communication issue. And in that case, guys, your IT need to get involved and they need to figure that out. If you are getting a WinSock error, all that we're going to do is try to add the pervasive database and ports to the firewall and see if it works, or turn those things off and go, look, they're working, speak to your IT. And the reason for that, guys, is we're not going to mess around on your network and with your network settings. We didn't set it up, and you're not going to be very happy with a bunch of amateurs, because we're not network engineers, we're not IT engineers messing with your network. You need an IT engineer then to help you out, preferably a network specialist. And you can show them the WinSock error and go, hey, this isn't working, this is the error it's giving me, and they should understand what that is if they actually know what they're doing. And hopefully you've hired IT guys who do know what they're doing. So guys, those are those specific errors. Then I want to speak about the cursed, and I do mean cursed, status 94. Now guys, status 94 can either be really quick to solve, or it can be the worst error ever. I have spent 5 minutes solving it, and I have spent 8 hours on LogMeIn or TeamViewer trying to get the server and the workstation to talk to each other. So you run the PSA and it says it's fine. But every time you try to open a company on the workstation, it's going to tell you that it either pervasive error 94 and that it cannot access registration.dat or company.dat, or it's going to give you a status 94. Now guys, it's not a great error. And again, you need to follow a lot of the same steps. So you need to make sure that your UAC is off. You need to make sure that the pervasive ports are added. You need to make sure that .NET is fully enabled, region, check all of that stuff. But guys, honestly, normally one of the first things we do on both the server and the workstation is we will uninstall Pervasive and reinstall it. Now, for some of my business BPs who asked me, business partners that asked me to go through this error, guys, I don't know if you've heard that this error doesn't happen on Pervasive version 13. It's specific to 10 from what we can see. We do need to confirm that, but a lot of people aren't on 13, but we've never seen it where it's Pervasive 13. It didn't happen on 9, and it doesn't seem to happen on Pervasive 13. And for my BPs that are going, yes, but we couldn't install 13 because of client server and that error with Sage Intelligence where the workstations couldn't run it, guys, that error is resolved. So if you want to put your clients on 13, please do so. It is resolved. They can run Sage Intelligence on the workstations now. It's not giving the error. You just do need to upgrade to the latest version. It was actually resolved, I think, 2 versions ago, which was 19.2.1 or 19.3.1. But guys, it was resolved and you can upgrade. So that is obviously a very easy way to not get status 94 to our knowledge. We've never had it reported on version 13. Upgrade to Pervasive 13 and you won't have it. It seems to be something to do with Windows 10 and Pervasive version 10, to be honest. So guys, that's something that you please need to just bear in mind. But again, just because that is something that you could do, it does not mean that, that's the solution and now we're not going to give you a way to solve it. So guys, just a comment, in Pastel, the help and about also does show you the server name. Thank you for that. Yes, it does. So you don't necessarily have to go to the server if you don't know what the name is the way that I showed you. I totally forgot about that. Thank you for that tip, guys. You can go into help and about even on the workstation and it will show you the server name. That's, of course, if you can open Pastel and you don't immediately get the error. So if you can go to help and about, you can absolutely get the server name from there. So guys, like I was saying, with the status 94, one of the first things that we will do is the first place that we go is the server, and we will uninstall Pervasive on the server and we will reinstall Pervasive on the server. We will then uninstall Pervasive on the workstation and reinstall Pervasive on the workstation. We will then register the server and then go and try to register the workstation. Now guys, what we found is that we install Pervasive version 10 as an application. Now I generally prefer installing it as a service, but it seemed like that's where the problem was maybe coming from. So when there's a Windows update, it seems to stop that service and seems to put files into a read-only format. And what we found is that installing Pervasive as an application worked. Sometimes we actually have to uninstall it, install as an application, uninstall it, install it as a service, and then uninstall and install it as an application again. That is in the 8 hours that I spent. And guys, as I said, it's not once that I've had to spend ages doing that. It's not a fun error if it's going to be one of the long ones. If it's a short one and it's just uninstall Pervasive, reinstall Pervasive, great, it works, that's fantastic. But multiple times that has happened and we've had to juggle between service and application to try to kind of get the system to work. Now, if the uninstall and the reinstall doesn't work, so you uninstall Pervasive, install it as an application on the server, go to the workstation, uninstall Pervasive, install it as an application on the workstation, unmap the workstation, remap it to the server, go to the server, register it, come back to the workstation and register it. If at that point you're still getting status 94 or Pervasive error 94, you need to go and uninstall everything from the server. You need to uninstall Pervasive, you need to uninstall Pastel. You then need to, on the server, go to Regedit, which is your registry editor. And again, guys, please remember that your registry editor is your operating system registry. Please be very careful on which keys you delete. If you feel uncomfortable being in the registry editor, please get your IT to do this, because if you delete the wrong thing or you change the wrong thing, you can break your operating system. But you can come into your registry editor, and guys, you're going to go to two places. So my Pastel's kind of already there, but you're going to go to two places. So you're going to go to HKey current user, software, VB and VBA program settings, and you're going to delete your Pastel folder. So here, guys, if you're running partner, you're going to delete partner and the version, or if you're running Express, you're going to delete Express and the version. You're then going to go back and you're going to go to HKey local machine, software. If you're running a 64-bit machine, which I think most of us are by this point, you need to go into WAL6432 node. And then, guys, you need to go into Softline. Now, you can either delete the whole Softline folder if you want, but then you're probably going to have to most likely re-register every single version. If you are a business partner, that can be frustrating because, like me, you will have every single version on your machine. But guys, or you can just go to the version with the problem and you can remove it. Generally, because this is a pervasive error, you're probably going to get this error on every single version. It's not version specific. It normally is just not going to communicate. So you can just remove Softline, and hopefully you do that on the server. Guys, you then go to the workstation, unmap the drive, remove the drive, and you're going to remove everything as well. You're going to uninstall Pervasive, you're going to uninstall Pastel. You're going to also go to exactly the same registry editor on the workstation. You're going to delete those keys. You then are going to navigate your File Explorer. In your File Explorer, you are going to rename the Pastel folder to .old. So if you are using partner, it's Pastel. If you're using Express, it's Express. I recently had my PC, well, I uninstalled a lot of stuff because I was having issues and I'm still trying to fix it. But guys, basically what you're going to do is you're going to go rename and you're going to say .old. And hopefully it will rename it. In my case, it won't because my Pastel is currently open. You are also going to go into your C drive. You are going to go into Program Files x86. You are going to go into Common Files. And guys, here, you should have a Sage folder, Sage Pastel. Rename this folder to .old too on both the server and the workstation. You are then going to go back to the server and you are now going to start installing everything, but you are going to start with Pervasive. So as I said, it's generally Pervasive version 10. So you are going to install your Pervasive as a application. Once you have installed your Pervasive, you are going to install your Pastel again. Once you've installed your Pastel, it is going to create a new Sage Pastel folder as well as a new Pastel folder on your C drive. If you are the server, you will need to share this folder. You will need to copy the companies from the old folder to the new folder, and you will then register the server. Then you will go to the workstation. You are going to map the drive to the new folder. You are going to install Pervasive, and then you are going to install your Pastel. Then you are going to register it. And guys, hopefully after all of that, it will work. So that is the solution that we have. The quick solution, which is just uninstall and reinstall Pervasive, and let's hope it works. Or the very long way around, where you have to basically remove everything, remove the registry keys, remove Pastel, remove Pervasive, rename folders. Because guys, basically what's happening is the workstation cannot read the registration DAT files on the server. It is saying that they are in read only, and so it can't take the information from the DAT files on the server and copy them to the DAT files on the workstation to apply your licenses. That does work. The solution does work, but as I said, sometimes it is playing around with it. And removing it, and you do have to do it on the server and the workstation. So guys, that is the solution that we have, other than upgrade to version 13 where it doesn't happen at all, to our knowledge. We've never seen a case of I'm running version 13 and I've got status 94. If that changes, I will let you know. But at this point, to my knowledge and the knowledge of my other two specialists, never seen a case on version 13. So a permanent solution, upgrade to Pervasive version 13 or Actian version 13. So guys, those are the main three pervasive errors. Does anyone have any questions on those pervasive errors? Guys, is there anything that you're unsure about? As I said, a lot of this is me just talking because I can't show a lot of the stuff because it's not, I can't force the error to happen to show you how to resolve it. So guys, are you okay with what I've told you? Does it make sense, or have I lost you somewhere? Please let me know by using the question icon. That is on the right-hand side of the screen, little question mark in a speech bubble. Guys, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes just to either say no questions or to ask your question and answer them before moving on to status 2 and status 46. Hey guys, while I'm waiting to see if questions come through, what I do want to take you to is I just want to take you to our YouTube site. Again, I'm sure many of you have seen this, but just to remind you guys, here you're going to type in Sage Customer Support and Training. And basically in the Sage Customer Support and Training, you're going to go to Sage Customer Support and Training. So it's white logo. Then guys, you need to go down to find Africa and Middle East. And what you're going to do is you're going to move across to find the Sage 50cloud Pastel, but do not click on the Sage 50cloud Pastel or it's just going to start the playlist. So it's going to start you at a random video and you're going to be like, oh wait, where are these videos? Go view full playlist. And in the view full playlist, firstly, as I said, here guys, you can, for example, see the videos that are recorded. So here you go, we'll say recording of live webinar if you want to rewatch those. But then guys, basically what you're looking for is we have one on 161, we have one on status 94, and we have one on just errors in general. So like how do I resolve runtime error 5 when opening a company? So we are trying to do more on errors. But guys, basically you're gonna scroll and you're going to find them. So these were actually uploaded last year already to try to help you. And you can come in here and you can watch these videos and they will actually take you step by step through a lot of the steps that I took you through to resolving these errors. Then as I said, you can also how to minimize errors, tips and tricks. And guys, this is my one about the UAC, .NET framework, deselecting that beta mode, your region and language, because that being set up correctly doesn't just stop pervasive errors from happening or status errors. It actually stops a lot of errors from happening because you've optimized your windows to allow Pastel to communicate correctly. So you can look through these, and these are in the list. So they are here for you to look through. These are the solutions. And then guys, that link that I sent through last week with the runtime errors, that is a link to our infographic on all of the KB articles with solutions. Again, if you go to a KB article and you see the solution, you're like, wait, this is missing a step, this looks wrong, this isn't working. Guys, please let us know. We're not going to know to improve those articles if you don't tell us, hey, this is confusing, or I don't actually understand what you mean by this step. We are trying to create videos for every article, but there are over 400 articles, so it is taking a bit of time, but we are trying to do that. So let us know, because that'll really help. So guys, that being said, I don't see any questions coming through. So if you are writing a question, please send it through. I will stop, I will answer it. But I have given us like 3-4 minutes and I don't see any questions. So guys, what I want to talk about next is status 2. So status 2 normally happens when you're trying to update something. So even status 46, I think that there's status 2, status 46, status 146. And guys, essentially, they're actually all the same error. It's just different versions of that error. And it normally happens when you're either trying to access a certain record or you're trying to actually update a record. And mostly it happens when you're trying to update a record. So you're trying to write, for example, to one of the files. So you're trying to write to ACMAS or ACMASD, which is your debtors master, or ACMASC, which is your creditors master. And ACMAS is your general ledger master. So those of you who, when I talk about certain AC files and you're going, Joanne, I don't know what that means. Guys, we did do a webinar on the file tables explained. It's a really awesome webinar that you can go watch. I am in the process of converting it to a YouTube video, and it explains the different file tables. So no, it's not PCC. And again, guys, I'm never going to teach you how to use PCC. These webinars will never be about that, but I can explain file tables, what they are, what info is in them, and you can take it from there. I am not certified to train you on PCC and how to do data fixing, but I do explain that. And guys, what I'm talking about is those files. So Pervasive is your database, and that is where everything is written in the form of different tables. So you will have your history header, your history lines, your customer master, your GL master, your supplier master. And when your open item master or your open item table, and when you update information, it writes to specific tables. So for example, and please let's pray, because I couldn't find my database, that this open. Clearly I resolved my error this morning by uninstalling and reinstalling my Pervasive, but I've lost my Actian folder, which I will go find later. But guys, basically, so for example, let's take a tax invoice, for example, and we fill in this information. Now, this information writes to specific tables. The top writes to your history header and a little bit of your history lines, because it needs to know the document number. This section writes to your document lines, and the bottom writes to your history header again. And that is important to know, but it's also important to know that while history headers and history lines are affected, when you update, it has to write to, in this case, your customer master and your general ledger master. And if it's an open item customer, it writes to your open item table. So that is a lot of tables that are being affected just by processing an invoice. And when that happens, you may receive a status 2, a status 146, a status 46. And basically what it's telling you is, hi, I can't write to a table. And normally it will tell you the table. So it will tell you status 2 file 6, and then it will tell you what that is. So it will tell you ACCTRN. This is why I say, guys, really important that you actually came to my file tables explained. So the ACCTRN is your transaction file, and that tells you which file needs to be rebuilt. Because if you get a status 2, a status 46, or a status 146, Guys, the very first thing you need to do is it's going to close Pastel, reopen Pastel, reopen your company and go to File Backup and make a backup. It is really, really important to make a backup. Now, guys, I do know with Sage 50C, if you do get a status 2, it will rebuild on trying to launch Pastel. If it does ask you to do that, rather say no and make a backup or make a manual backup. Just because, guys, you don't want something to go wrong like a critical error. And the way you make a manual backup is you navigate to your Pastel folder where the companies are. So if you're on a workstation, you'll go through the map drive. You can also go to the server if you want. But guys, you're basically going to go to the folder and you're going to go to send to compressor. So if you're scared of going back into Pastel because you don't want it to, you know, rebuild and something breaks, then rather make a manual backup so that it's there and then open your Pastel. It should try to rebuild the file. Alternatively, you can go to the rebuild utility. This is the Pastel rebuild utility. And the reason that you make a backup is the Pastel rebuild utility does something very different to the Pervasive rebuild utility. The Pastel rebuild utility creates a new table and copies the information from the old table into the new table. So if, for example, we're talking about ACCTRN.dat, you're going to open the company and you're going to come and find ACCTRN.dat. Where is it? There it is. Now, this is your transaction file. This is the life of your company. If this rebuild fails and you get a critical error, it may delete all the information in here because remember, it's created a blank table. It's gone, here's your new file, and it's trying to copy the information from the old table into the new table. If I can't do that, you will essentially have a blank transaction table. This is why it's critical to have a backup. So you rebuild this file and hopefully it rebuilds this file successfully. To which mine seems to be frozen or just not doing it. Interesting. So guys, remember I said that I did have pervasive issues. This could be why. It does not seem like it wants to rebuild. But what it's meant to do is it's meant to rebuild. So it's meant to run through and it's meant to tell you X records of X records. That's what you want to see. If you get a critical error, a lot of people, what they do, oh, that's why my Pastel's open. Sorry, guys. Please make sure Pastel is closed. So just to show you that, and guys, I'm not actually going to rebuild the transaction file just because I probably have a lot of transactions there. You can go to rebuild 32 if you like. Let's rebuild. I'm going to rebuild one of my master files because it'll go pretty quickly. But basically, guys, you can see it says rebuilding X of X. Now, transaction is every transaction you've ever processed. So there could be millions of files and it can take hours for that to rebuild. But if you get a critical error, and guys, I can't stress this enough, you have got to run a data integrity. Because what will happen is we tell this to people and we go, hey, you've got a critical error, you need to restore your last working backup. And a lot of people don't always make backups. Unfortunately, guys, they're really important. Please do them. But some people don't. So they're like, oh, well, I've got a backup that I did today, but then my last backup is last week and I don't want to lose that work. And what people do is they will come in and they will try to update it after it failed on the Pervasive Rebuild. It'll work, and the reason it'll work is because it created a new file and there's no information in the file. And if we're talking about the transaction file, guys, that means all of your transactional history is missing. When you try to run your reports, you are going to have untold errors. And when you do year-end, you're going to have untold errors. And The answer to, hey, can you fix this, is no. Start a new company, take on balances, because guys, you are going to have pages of errors and DataFix can't fix that. So if you get a critical error and you don't believe me, which is fine, no offense, please run a data integrity, because the data integrity will give you the errors and it will tell you, hey, you have like 5 pages of errors, and then you know, oh, okay, that critical error really messed up my data, and that's a problem. I need to restore a backup because I need my financials to be correct. So guys, you should always run data integrity, even if the rebuild is successful. Please run data integrity. Technically, you should run it before and after, but at the very least, run it after, just to double check that everything is okay. Now, I personally, if there is a status 2 or a 46 or a 146, don't like using the Pastel rebuild, just because it does create a new file or a new table. What I like using is I like to use the Pervasive Rebuild. I feel it's safer, and guys, it doesn't create a new table. It actually tries to rebuild the table that's in Pervasive. So you'll either go to P for Pervasive or A for Actian, and here you're going to select PSQL Rebuild, and you can see it looks very different. I feel this is safer. This is the rebuild I always advise people to use. The only time I will use the Pastel rebuild is if there's a specific error and we need to rebuild all the files except for parameter files. Then I'll be like, look, it's going to be a lot easier if we actually just do this one, make a backup, and let's just be certain. And then I explain the critical error and what can happen. But guys, if we're talking about one file, you just got to add, you change this to all files. You're going to navigate to the company file. So for example, this PC, and we're going to go, in my case, to my C drive, to my Pastel 19, and to my demo. And then again, we're just looking for ACC, for example, ACC-trn.dat or ACC-acmas, whichever it is. So I want to see how long the TRN will take. And you're going to go open. And guys, you see it adds up one by one. So you can add all of them here if you want. But remember, you can't add DB or .dat, your parameter files, so your ACC-PRM. You can't rebuild those files. They shouldn't be rebuilt. But you can add all of the other files. Then you're going to say next, leave it exactly as it is, and hopefully what you're going to see is files were rebuilt successfully. Now guys, the Pervasive Rebuild I also find is a little bit quicker than the Pastel Rebuild, and this is what you want to see. But if it says files were not rebuilt successfully, you need to view the log, and it's going to tell you why. So it will tell you, for example, critical error 5 or status error 3, whatever it is, and based on that, we can tell you, oh, maybe Pastel was open. So for example, guys, an error 75 means that you just don't have permission to rebuild the file. And you know, if you actually try to open the Pastel rebuild and you try to rebuild it, what you will find is you will also actually find that it just won't do anything like mine was doing. So in this case, if I tried, it would have told me either runtime 75 or just error 75, which means, hey, I can't rebuild this because Pastel's open. So 1, check Pastel's closed, and 2, check that you do have full permission to rebuild that file. Generally, I wouldn't advise rebuilding over the network. I would actually advise, if you do need to rebuild a file and you are in a multi-user environment, please go to the server. And what you want to see is rebuild successfully. If it tells you critical error, guys, again, a critical error means that it cannot rebuild it at all. The file is corrupt. You have to restore a backup. The difference with this one, though, is that it doesn't create new file tables. So even if you go back into Pervasive and try to update that batch because you're like, I don't want to restore the backup, you're still going to get the error. But please make sure that you do rebuild the correct company. So guys, I honestly advise using the Pervasive Rebuild and not the Pastel Rebuild. But as long as the Pastel Rebuild does work, but as long as you understand the ramifications, if it's easier, you can use it, but I would use the Pervasive Rebuild. And guys, that is how you rebuild, and that is normally how you solve those errors. If the rebuild does not work, and guys, the only time it won't work is we're talking about a critical error. It'll tell you critical error, that is a restore. There is no way past the restore, the file's corrupt. So you need to get a working backup. And honestly, I would rebuild that file in a working backup. So for whatever reason, the file table corrupted, and hopefully it won't corrupt on that. And yes, any work that you've done after the backup that works, you're going to have to recapture. Okay, someone asked, where do we get the playlist? And it seems that you found it, guys. If you don't remember, I will take you through it again shortly. Unfortunately, I have tried to share a link before, but then it just starts playing the very first video. So you do need to search in YouTube for it. But I will take you there again shortly. But guys, does anyone have any questions on status 2, status 46, status 146? Do you understand that if you get a critical error, you have to restore a backup? It's not fixable. It means that the table is corrupted, that specific table. And guys, normally the tables that are corrupted are not tables that can be overwritten. There are a few files in Pastel that can be overwritten, and I go through those in my file table explanation, but the majority of tables can't be overwritten. You can't go overwrite them with an ACC ENG file, because it will corrupt, or it will mean missing information and your report will be incorrect. And no problem. Have a lovely day further. Thank you for joining me. Guys, I do realize that we are 20 past 11, so any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, guys, that is mostly what I wanted to share with you on the status errors. This recording will be sent through to you tomorrow at roughly 10 o'clock with your certificate. And then guys, I'm just, while you hopefully are going to ask me your questions, I'm just going to go through a little bit of feedback from our runtime errors. So guys, people asked about the CPD hours also. Guys, I've sent an email through, and what I got told is that, you know, that basically you just need to email them and tell them, hey, I was in the session from here to here. If you get queried, you are welcome to ask them to please email me or include me in that email with channel, and I will tell them, yes, guys, they attended the session and it was an hour and a half long, which is what most of my sessions are, guys. They normally run, I try to keep them to an hour. I haven't managed it yet, but they normally run from about 10 until 11:30. So there's that feedback. People asked, when will the digital signing certificate expire? Guys, I was told in Jan, but honestly, I don't see why you don't just upgrade people now. It's nothing else in that build changed. It's the exact same build with the new digital signing certificate. So 1933, that's what it is. No, it's not going to slow your PC down. We have had a report of that. And guys, we looked into it, and no, it wasn't the build. It was something else, but because they ran the build, they went, this build did this. And there's nothing else in 1934 that's changed. The only thing that's changed is the digital signing certificate. That is it. It's exactly the same as 1933 otherwise. So that is that feedback. I did try to put it on the email. I don't know if it updated. No one came back to me to go, hey, this wasn't on there, so I hope it did. But I just thought I would go over that. Then guys, to show you again, if some of you missed it, how to get to the YouTube, to the playlist. Again, you're going to search for Sage Customer Support and Training. It is the white logo on a green background. You're going to go, and then guys, you're going to scroll down and you'll see that there's a number X3, Sage North America, Sage UK. What you're looking for is Sage Africa and Middle East. Now, sometimes my channel jumps. It just depends how we're uploading videos. But normally it's no further than one line away. This one has 173 videos, and you're going to click on View Full Playlist. So please don't click on the actual Sage 50. Otherwise, it's just going to open everything. And then, guys, you just scroll down for what you're looking for. I mean, if you want to watch the whole playlist, awesome. Please remember that there are recordings of my full webinars in here, and the one on everything about inventory was 2 hours. So if you want to spend 5 days watching this, that would be really awesome. But I don't think that we all have that time, unfortunately. So this is the way that you can scroll to find what you're looking for. Again, guys, as well, if there's something specific that you want us to do a video on, let us know. You know, you can email me and go, hey, Joe, I've looked through the playlist and I don't know how to do this specific thing, or I'm getting this error. Could you look into doing a video? Guys, I can't promise that on that day I'm going to drop everything and put a video together, or my colleagues will drop everything and put a video together. Putting videos together, even 5-10 minute videos, don't take 5 or 10 minutes. They take hours and a lot of prep. So, but we will look at then doing it. You know, as I said, we are trying to do videos for every article so that you can choose whether you want to read steps or you want to watch it and follow along. And yeah, that's how you get to this. If you have any questions about this session, you are welcome to email me if you don't get your questions answered now, joanne.barnard@sage.com. Guys, any support questions though, so if you are getting an error or you aren't getting an answer from support, asking me to please answer it isn't going to work, not because I don't want to help you, but guys, there are times where I get really busy and I don't answer those questions, or I don't notice that someone's emailed me until hours, if not days later. I'm like, oh shoot, I remember clicking on that, but I was in the middle of a webinar. I do run more webinars than just this. Or I was in the middle of a video, and guys, I'm human. I don't mean to ignore it, but I'm like, yeah, okay, cool, I'll get there in like an hour, and I forget. And there's no record of you asking that question or saying, hey, I need help. So in that instance, support queries, please email supportsa@sage.com, because it will give you an incident number and it is on record, and you will get timelier support. So things about, hey, I didn't receive my email, please can I have this recording, or suggestions about, can you run a webinar on this, can you do that, can you create this video, I'm really urgently looking for it. Guys, sure, please send that through directly to me. I will try to respond to you timeously, but it may be a day or two before you get a response from me if unfortunately I've clicked on it while I've been busy creating a video or creating an article or running another webinar. It's not intentional and I may have forgotten. But send those to me. I'm happy to try to facilitate where I can. And then guys, I think that is all of the feedback. I don't see any questions coming through. So guys, I hope that you found this useful. We have had a meeting about what topics we're going to be running next year. And guys, I am happy to tell you that I will be starting Sage Business Cloud accounting webinars next year as well. I will only run one a month, and they are going to be pretty basic. The reason for that is to make sure that, one, I can make sure that I know what I'm talking about, and it's not going to be a horrible session for you guys where you know more than me and you're like, hey, this was an awful session. You know, you chose a difficult concept, but obviously it's not your product. So I am, again, still upskilling myself in Sage Business Cloud accounting. But guys, we are going to start webinars on that and seeing what you want and how you want them. So those will start next year from January. And we've got our topics picked out. So I hope that you'll find those really useful and helpful. Much like I started the ones for Sage 50 Cloud, they were basic at first, and then we got into the more nitty-gritty, the more comfortable and the more experienced I got with doing webinars and with the system. We have decided what we're running for Sage 50 Cloud as well, And guys, that will be up on Sage City at the end of November. So I will post the topics on both Sage Business Cloud Accounting and Sage 50 Cloud. So please go and look on Sage City. Then you can start signing up for them. And hopefully, and a lot of them are topics that you guys asked for. Guys, there will be a break from, I think, 2 weeks, the end of February, all the way to the first week of April. And guys, during that time, we're going to be running year-end webinars specifically, but they're going to be on specific queries. So it's not going to be Q&A like this year and all day. It's going to be, hey, today we're doing year-end run wrong company, sign up. But we will put that list up closer to year-end for you. And if you have any suggestions on year-end issues that you get that you would like webinars run on, again, guys, please send me an email, let me know, go, hey, this happens every year, and, you know, a webinar on this would really be cool. Those will be during that period. So guys, with regards to a question that I've got at the moment, I've been asked, is the Pervasive, we should upgrade to Pervasive version 13 workgroup? Guys, it's Pervasive version 13 workgroup or client server. It depends what your client or what you are running. So if you are running workgroup, then yes, please upgrade to Pervasive version 13 workgroup. There may be a cost involved. You will need to get hold of our sales team and tell them that you want to upgrade. But if you are a business partner, guys, if your client is running client server, then you need to upgrade them to Pervasive version 13 client server. At some point, you are going to need to upgrade them. So guys, there's been, we're still trying to test Windows 11. We're trying to get that licensed. We haven't tested it yet. For Server 2019, that was released last year and people are starting to install it now. Pervasive version 10 is not compatible with Server 2019. They have to be on Pervasive version 13, whether it is workgroup or client server. So that was where I was saying we haven't had any reports of status 94 on version 13 yet. I'm not saying it will never happen, but we do have people running on that and we've never had a status 94 on it. That's why our solution is, well, upgrade to that. At some point, you're going to need to anyway, because we do not believe that Windows 11 is actually compatible with version 10. And so it's probably going to be version 13 that's compatible, and Server 2019 is only compatible with version 13. Okay, guys, I've been speaking for a very long time, so I'm now going to stop unless there are any further questions. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. I really hope that you found this information useful, and join us for our next session that will be happening in 2 weeks' time. Otherwise, guys, have a fantastic day further, a wonderful weekend, and I will see you then. If you have any further questions, please post them in the question icon. Thank you.